Hello, today I'm going to be demonstrating on NED 3 how to produce volumes and values for the tree species in our given data set with the variables from data that we've collected, including tree grade, the merchantable height, and as to whether the tree was acceptable or unacceptable growing stock. So with those additional variables, I actually went and modified my original Excel spreadsheet, created a new text file, and now I'm going to go through the steps of defining those new variables. So the first few steps are going to be familiar and the same from the first video. So I'm going to start out under the inventory to enter and edit new data. And so when I select my file, you will see that there is tree ID, species, the dBH in inches, tree grade, merchantable height, and then determining as to whether the tree was acceptable or unacceptable. So when I go ahead and create a new schema, these first three variables will be the same as last time. Overstory observations, the tree ID number I called the tree name, species, diameter at breast height, and then when it comes to grade, this one was actually, it took me a few minutes to try to figure out what I should call this. My first instinct was to go to timber quality. However, when I clicked on most valuable product, I noticed that this is where the grade saw logs were located. So again, I said that I modified my original Excel spreadsheet, and you may need to do the same thing, because originally I had entered for a grade 1 saw log a value of 1, for a grade 2 saw log a value of 2, and for a grade 3 saw log a value of 3. However, if you observe here on the screen now, NED has different definitions for those values. So if you left everything as is, NED will read a 1 as a veneer, a 2 as a saw log, and a 3 as pulpwood. So in my spreadsheet, I actually went back, modified it, created a new text file, so that my grade saw logs for grade 1 I labeled as 21, for grade 2 I labeled as 22, and for grade 3 I labeled as 23, to match up with what the NED definitions are. However, there is something else that you can do instead of that, and so I'll just give you a quick example of that. You can see that NED recognizes that I have a file value of 0, however NED has no way to define that, so it is currently ignoring all of those zeros. You are able to go down in the blue section and double click, uncheck the ignore fields with this value, and so for an input value I'm going to type 0. And then I'm going to choose what I want NED to define that 0 as. And so for now I'm just going to say pulpwood. And so I'll click OK. And so now NED, if it ever sees just a 3, it will label it as pulpwood. But also, if it sees a 0, it will also label that as pulpwood. And so you can actually go through and change some of the NED definitions, where if you don't want to modify your spreadsheet and text file, you can just tell NED, read 1 as a grade 1 saw log, 2 as grade 2 saw log, and so on and so forth. So I'm going to click OK. Now for merchantable height in feet. Again, this is an overstory observation. I'm going to scroll down and I'll click on saw log height. If you'll notice, my numbers are slightly different. I put in an 8, a 16, and a 24. Originally, when I collected this data, I just entered 0.5 to represent half of a log, 1 to represent a full log, and 1.5 to represent a log and a half. However, this is very important, to read what goes on in the gray boxes that define some of these variables. So NED, it will read heights of saw log portion of tree in feet. So if you leave it as 1, 1.5, or 2, NED will only be reading that as 1 foot, 1.5 feet, or 2 feet. so your volumes and values will be significantly lower than what is actually out there. Again, it is possible for you to modify this in the same way that I did with the pulpwood by double-clicking and saying I want 1 to equal 16, 2 to equal 32, and so on. But in my original spreadsheet, I modified it so that half a log is 8 feet, 1 log is 16 feet, and a log and a half is 24 feet. So I'm going to click OK. And then finally, for acceptable and unacceptable growing stock, I'm going to go to overstory observations, scroll down to find timber quality. And again, originally in my data, I had said A for acceptable, U for unacceptable. However, Ned generally reads 1 as acceptable and 2 as unacceptable, so I just modified that in my spreadsheet, converted that to my text file, and matched up my definition so that Ned would be able to read it as is. So we'll go ahead and press OK. Go back to my species codes. Just bring one over and then automatically generate codes. Click on yes. Click OK. And then change to an INI file. So YouTube demo. I'll save and click OK. And I'll bring in all of my data. One thing to be sure not to forget to do is underneath inventory settings to change your overstory type from prism plots to fixed area, and then for your plot size to change that from 1/100th of an acre to 0.6, or for this, because I'm using all of the data, 0.9 acres. And you can go to your observations and you will see that all of your data is there. And so the next step of what we'd like to do is actually attribute from the New York DEC stumpage price report those stumpage prices to the species that we have on our plot. So again, underneath inventory, click on plant species information and you'll see all of the species that are here that we observed in our plot. And below that, you'll want to check in the box to have the tree species. And that'll set values specific to tree species, such as correction factors and timber prices. So I actually already went ahead and typed in all the values that we gave you in a handout in class. That was derived directly from the DEC stumpage price report. So you can see here that for sugar maple, a grade 3 tree is $200 per 1,000 board feet. A grade 2 tree is going to be $360 per 1,000 board feet, and for a grade 1 tree, that'll be $450 per 1,000 board feet. And so you can go ahead and just click in the box and you can change those numbers as needed. And so then from here, it's going to be just as in the last video with these updated prices. You can go to Analysis, click on Reports, select your 2017 inventory, and under your batch reports, it'll be the same reports as last time. Under the timber tables, all of your overstory observations, and if you have any questions about that, watch the second video again. Find your output batch reports. You can save it. Generate the reports. And you can scroll down and see volumes that'll be updated specific to the tree heights that we measured and the values that are associated with that based on the prices from the DEC stumpage price report. So I hope this was helpful, and again, thanks for watching.